Alright. So yeah, I wanted to talk about two movies that I watched over the weekend. Well, not the weekend, actually. That's not right. I watched over the last 2 weeks because I was in Australia and not actually streaming 5 days a week. I was casting Ozcraft, which you can check out a recap of that on my YouTube, which some people are probably watching YouTube right now. The first one that I watched because I was in Australia. I like watching a movie from the country that I'm going to. So in Germany, I watched... man, why do I keep forgetting this name? Like Goodbye Lenin or whatever? Something like that. And it was really good. So I thought about doing the same thing for Australia. But I actually had some difficulty finding an Australian movie that looked interesting. So eventually I decided to watch Muriel's Wedding, which is a pretty old movie at this point, but it is one of the more famous Australian movies. Really hard to find in Australia, weirdly enough. Like, it's not available on any of their services, like YouTube or Google Play or anything like that. It was available on like some, like, I don't know, like All Access, like CBS All Access, something really, really weird like that. So luckily I ended up just watching it on Google. So it worked out. It was actually really easy to find on YouTube. But anyways, I was expecting something very different. I saw that it was kind of a drama comedy. A dramedy. And prepared myself for that, but I still wasn't fully prepared for what it actually was. To start things off, overall, I think I'd give it like a 6.5 out of 10, maybe. As there were, like, overall, it was an enjoyable experience, I suppose, and that kind of pushes it over the 5 out of 10. If it's not an enjoyable experience overall, I'm going to give it like 5 and lower, right? Like, oh man. When's the last time I've ever seen a movie where I was just like, wow, this is really terrible? Honestly, Dr. Sleep. Dr. Sleep, like, was a well-crafted movie, but I didn't really enjoy it. After, like, the first hour, I was kind of like, oh, this is gonna take forever, isn't it? And it did. It felt like it lasted forever, so they'd actually give Dr. Sleep, like, a 4. But anyways. So Muriel's Wedding is, like, okay. I don't know how many people have actually seen it here, because, again, it is kind of an older movie. Thanks, Gimbleby. But yeah, it's the general thing is that it's about a woman who's very bad at life, I guess, is what you would say. Very immature. I don't even know how old she was. I never actually caught how old she was. And her actress looks old in, like, a lot of the photos, like a lot of the cinematography. The shots and the lighting make her look kind of old. And then there's some other shots where it looks more like she's just kind of a old-looking teenager. You know, like 19, 20, maybe. But I really couldn't tell. But anyways, she's far too old to be doing what she's doing. And I guess she didn't go to college or anything like that, so she's probably in her 20s. It was very weird. Same with her best friend as well. Like, initially her best friend looked like, yeah, 20s, and then she, like, cut her hair and, like, went clubbing and stuff, and I was like, are they trying to make her look like she's a teenager? No, right? No, that can't be it. It was just the style of the 90s, because that's when it came out, which was almost 30 years ago, guys. Oh, Dross Piece 2, my dude. It's called Google. If you Google your same question, you'll get an answer. Okay, well, that's a donation goal. It's just a... Donation goals are kind of weird things, to interrupt the movie club talk for a second. Donation goals are weird things in the same way that, like, Patreon is a weird thing. Patreon, you can set up the coolest rewards with the coolest thing, and at the end of the day, if someone likes you, then that's what they're gonna do, and they're gonna stop. Like they'll maybe do the rewards for like a month and they'll stop, and there's like, even almost no point even giving rewards. That's been the case for any Patreon that I've given money to, or any Patreon that I've seen, like a friend's or my Patreon. But anyways, in a similar vein, donation goals are almost just like, no matter what they say, like some Twitch streamers have donation goals that are like chicken tendies, like for Nate, or other ones are just like daily goals. But what does that really mean? Like, what's gonna happen if you hit your daily goal? Nothing. So they're all kind of weird and sometimes far-fetched, sometimes just there to just be like, hey, don't forget, there's an option to support your streamer. In this case, going blonde is actually quite expensive. Not that it's $600 expensive, but it's one of those things where trying to account for the amount of money that I have to spend on bleaching hair, which is a lot, and also a lot of time. Taking care of the hair, they buy like special hair products, and then also like any amount of lost, I suppose, work that is done during this time, or any like, you know, actually not just spending money on the blondes, but also making a living as well. So it comes out to be kind of like a Mimi donation goal, right? Anyways, I'm actually kind of glad someone pointed that out, because I always wanted to like talk about donation goals. It's kind of a finicky subject though, because the more you explain it and talk about it and bring it to light, the more chances are someone's gonna have a problem with it, right? But anyways, back to Muriel's wedding. So she's a terrible human being, is basically just, she befriends someone who's really cool. Thanks for the cheer. 444 bits for any purpose, blonde or any other color. Thank you. Yeah, she's a terrible person. It's kind of like they start you off slow. They kind of make you feel for her a little bit, but she's a terrible person with a terrible dad, and her family's kind of lazy, and her mom's the only one who really seems to be nice and wholesome. She steals all their money, goes off to try and impress a bunch of fake friends, meets a real friend, decides to live her life with her stolen money from her family, and through like a bunch of things happening, she eventually gets better, I suppose. So Movie Club always had spoilers. They just give you a taste of what that is, and then from here on out, spoilers. The spoiler is that she like really wants to get married, so eventually she finally gets an opportunity to marry someone that's like really attractive and really hot. Her other defining feature is that she really loves ABBA, but I didn't really grab onto that, I feel. So I kind of forget that it's even a thing, but anyways. So she marries a swimmer who needs to get an Australian visa, be a citizen of Australia to go into the Olympics. And he's really hot and handsome, and she finally gets married, but in the process she has to move away from her best friend, who's actually now disabled because she had cancer, and goes back to her hometown where she thinks she's a success because she finally got married, and like snubs her mom, who's currently like getting divorced from the dad because the dad's cheating on her type thing, and the mom tries to like shape up her sons and stuff like that and fails, and eventually commits suicide, which then finally gets Muriel to recognize that she's a greedy bitch, basically, and she tries to fix her life, and that's like the last 15 minutes of the movie, literally. So for the like 80% of this movie, it's just her being a terrible person, really, with very few redeeming qualities. There's like a scene where her best friend is like, no, the old Muriel, because she like had to name herself Muriel or something like that, because she pretended that she was running away from like an abusive husband. She was like, no, the old Muriel is a good friend. The new Muriel is just a married bitch or whatever. I forget the actual quote. And I'm just like, I remember sitting there and I'm like, Yeah, she was an okay friend to this person because they were roommates for a while, and she helped her with her first bout of cancer. But she really wasn't that good of a person. So when her friend's like, yeah, you're a better person, you were a better person than you are now, it's like, was she though? No. And there was kind of this weird thing where the friends never really knew what or who she was anyways, because their friendship was under false pretenses for the longest time. She said she was getting married, and then said, oh, I was running away from my cop fiance, he was abusive. And like never mentioned like how bad of a person she was, or how like her family was, or whatever. And it was just so weird to see that this was like one of the moments of her realizing. It wasn't the moment she realized she was a bad person, but it's supposed to be one of those like attack moments where someone else tells the main character like, you need to shape up, except that person doesn't actually know, like compares it to a person before that actually wasn't that good anyways. And it's like, what? She wasn't that great. Is this a podcast format stream? I don't know what that means. I don't. Craig Ellis has changed the viewpoint of life of the patient drastically. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, though. No playing, just talk. That's why it's under just chatting, my dude. So yeah, in that way, yes. I'm not sure if you misconstrued who was sick, Crusader King, but her friend was the one that was sick. And had the entire time of the movie until there's a point like 30 minutes into the movie, or months into their friendship, I don't know, something like that, where she finally reveals that she was telling her friend a lie. But yeah, the friend with cancer was under false pretenses of her friend. Mind if I listen while I play? Of course I don't mind. So anyways, like, yeah, it's not that Muriel got cancer and changed her life. No. What happens to Muriel is that, she gets attacked by her friend, who says, I don't want to be your friend anymore, because now you're a bad person, but she was always a bad person. What changes her is that shortly after, her mom commits suicide. And that's when she realizes, again, like the last 15 minutes of the movie, that she was a bad person. So like after the funeral, she sleeps with a guy that she was like married to but not in love to or anything like that. Says, I don't actually love you, so let's get a divorce. I'm no longer infatuated with the idea of marriage, and I need to be a better person. He agrees. She goes, picks up her best friend and says, let's get out of here. This town sucks. And her friend forgives her for making her come back to a home she didn't like, not taking care of her, she was handicapped and all that stuff. And then they ride off into the sunset. It's like literally the end of the movie. And I just like, I think the best part of the movie was the last 20 minutes or so. Very emotional. Like, the mom dying was very, very sad, because she was like the only good person in this entire fucking movie. The best friend's kind of a good person, actually. But the mom's like a wholesome person. So when she dies, it gets, pretty real. And it makes sense that Muriel would reevaluate her life, but it happens very instantly. And then there's just like the rest of the movie, the other 80% of the movie, where she's just a horrible person, quite dislikable. And her friend, like, apparently is okay with that, even after finding out that Muriel lied to her the entire time they were friends. And even thinks that she was a better person before she got married and, like, left her in the dust. Which, okay, she was a better person before she got married and left her in the dust, but she still wasn't a very good person. And I just didn't really like the first 80% of the movie because of that. There's a couple of funny moments where, like, there was, like, these terrible fake friends of Muriel that she wanted to impress. There was, like, a couple funny moments with them. They were a big, like, stereotype of, like, 90s clique from high school. That was kind of funny. And then otherwise, it was, like, a bunch of drama. very serious moments, and just a lot of moments where Muriel was having fun, but with no real redemption. She like helped her friend with cancer again, so she clearly had some goodness in her, but the entire time she was still using stolen money from her family. Specifically, she didn't just steal money from a family that was mostly abusive to her, like verbally abusive. She did so in a way that screwed over her mom, who was very wholesome. Her mom gave her a blank check saying, you know, use this to buy food or whatever, and Muriel stole $15,000 instead. And then the dad, the husband, berated the mom and blamed her. So this wasn't just like she stole money from her dad, who's verbally abusive, and then, you know, flipped him the finger. She came back, her mom was like, you didn't steal from me, did you? And then she just like ran away. So it's very pointedly a problem for the mom. Well, thank you, Dross Piece 2. Sounds just like Kylo Ren and Rey Skywalker relationship. Does it though? Does it? So there's the summary of the movie. Why I had some problems with it. I think also there's like a bit of editing problems, and this is a very small complaint, but still kind of valid. I think some of the sound editing could have been better, especially considering it was Australian accents. And some of them, the, what was it again? The Bogan accents is what I learned. So basically like a redneck accent, so pretty thick. With, you know, slang words thrown in that I didn't understand, but they, you know, that's fine. That's up to me to learn what the slang is. But in terms of just like sound editing, like I had the volume up in my hotel room, and as a native English speaker who had been in Australia for a week and a half until that point and understood almost everything everyone was saying, if it wasn't slang, I couldn't actually hear what they were saying. So that's a minor complaint, technical complaint, I guess. But it did kind of impact the quality of the watching. So 6.5 out of 10 from me on this one. It's kind of a classic movie, I guess, that's shown often enough, but definitely doesn't compare to the movie I watched in Germany, Goodbye Lenin, which I'm thinking a lot of these movies have a similar theme, where like the mother is a very central figure. Oops. So the other kind of disappointing movie that I watched was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is, what is his name? Quentin... Tarantino. I couldn't remember for some reason. A Tarantino movie. And it had Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, who I really enjoy as actors. I like both of them a lot. And it looked like a movie that seemed like it would be just like a fun ride type thing. Like the actual content of the movie via trailers didn't look like a whole lot. Like it really was like, what is this movie about? But I was intrigued by the director and the actors. It even had the chick from Birds of Prey and Wolf of Wall Street. What is her name? She's Australian, apparently. I didn't know that. Maggie, something like that. Shit. Margot Robbie? Is that what it is? Yeah. But you know, I like her as well. But the weird thing is, she doesn't actually do anything in the movie. It's the weirdest thing, but I'll get into that in a second. So the general gist of the movie is that it's an actor who's kind of on his last legs in a period of time back in like the 50s, 60s, actually 60s, that, you know, Westerns are very popular, and he was like a very popular Western TV show. There we go, TV show lead. But he was kind of getting older, and he was kind of having to accept his fate that maybe he wasn't going to be able to be a hot actor in Hollywood anymore. He eventually goes off to do Italian films, which apparently was a big thing back then. Italian westerns. And Brad Pitt is a stunt double who like is like a very good friend of his, and they're like best buds, but has a lot of trouble finding work. And you find out eventually that it's because there's a rumor that he killed his wife, and the film leaves it very up to, it's pretty vague if he did or not, leaning towards that he did, but who knows. Yeah, Margot Robbie. And while this is happening, of course, they live in Hollywood. Their neighbors are other famous director, like a famous director and Margot Robbie's character. But that's it. Like, they're neighbors. They actually literally never talk to each other. DiCaprio's character kind of has an idea that maybe if he becomes friends with his neighbors, he'll get into more movies by the same director. And everything in here is like, well, besides the main characters, I suppose, like there's a lot of references to things that actually happen in Hollywood. So like all the actors are playing real people. There's a lot of movies that are shown and referenced to, not just literally like an homage to it, but literally they put DiCaprio in a famous Western, because they'd have a conversation where it's like, oh, what if you had actually, you tried out for this, what if you had actually gotten it? And then it kind of flashes to what he practiced for the on-screen test, which of course didn't actually happen. Hello. And then there's some mixed, like, things get thrown in. The stunt double, like, it's constantly flirting with this hippie on the street. And I use hippie because that's, like, literally her definition, is that this chick's a hippie. And then finally actually gets to, like, get her a ride, because she's always hitchhiking. So she gives him a ride. He gives her a ride. And it turns out that it's to, like, the Manson family hideout, basically. Which I guess, I don't know if this is true or not. I know, like, it's a very small amount about the Manson family murders. But apparently they, like, had an old Western set outside of Hollywood where a bunch of, again, like, hippies and just outcasts and runaways and all that stuff, like, hung out. And it was really weird. History shown in this film doesn't work on its legs. I don't quite understand that phrasing. Well, the whole point, so continuing on to to summarize the film here, again, spoilers. Hey, House Gamer, is that he thinks it's messed up, it's weird. He kind of gets in a fight with them, but then it kind of leaves it at that. Years, or a year or 2 years pass by or something, and DiCaprio's character is resigned to his fate of doing Italian movies. Brad Pitt's character is resigned to his fate of probably just following him around and occasionally getting stunt acting jobs. And then they come back home. At the time the Manson murders are supposed to happen, basically. The Manson kids are going around looking for people to murder. They decide to murder someone in Hollywood. They go into their house. Brad Pitt's character kicks all their asses. Kills every single one of them, except the girl who ran away in the beginning. And that's the end of the movie. And then finally, like, Margot Robbie's character is like, hey, did you guys just, like, almost die? And they're like, yeah, we did. And that's, like, the end of the movie. And if you don't know anything about the Manson murders, that's a lie. But there was a lot of lies, because it's once upon a time in Hollywood. It's false, right? Like, DiCaprio's character trying out for big movies didn't happen. DiCaprio wasn't even born. And there was a scene where Bruce Lee got his ass handed to him by Brad Pitt's character, which didn't really happen. There's, like, a story that goes around that Bruce Lee did talk a lot of shit, or not a lot of shit. Like, he said he could beat someone who I think was a stunt double, but he wasn't just like some random Joe Schmo stunt double. He actually was like a fucking legitimate black belt in some grappling technique or something. He's a huge guy as well. And, like, that might have happened, but him getting his ass kicked by some random Joe Schmo stunt double didn't actually happen. So that's a scene in the movie that doesn't actually happen. It gets Brad Pitt's character fired off the set. And him killing all the Manson kids, and, well, not all of them, but 4 of them didn't actually happen either. So it's false, right? and you're supposed to know that. So if anyone watched this and was like, that's what happened? Oh my god. Like, no, it didn't. That's not what happened. They interviewed Bruce Lee and he was mad at how they betrayed him. That's wrong, because Bruce Lee's 100% dead, has been for years. The Bruce Lee family, specifically his wife, was upset with how they betrayed him, which makes sense, because even though Bruce Lee might have been like, yeah, I think I could take that guy on. First of all, Bruce Lee wasn't like, oh, like I don't think anyone really describes Bruce Lee as an overconfident dickhead, but that's what they portrayed in the movie.
Sabbath received. Thank you for appeasing the Overmind.
Thank you very much, Sid Bledner. Twitch Prime sub. Hey, Crimson Kind. But yeah, they portrayed him as a very pompous asshole in the movie. So not just that he was like, you know what, I think I could beat him because my style is the best and I'm a very good martial artist. Which he's probably said to many people and actually couldn't beat. And that's fine. But he absolutely would have kicked a character like Brad Pitt's character up, left, right, and center. And not been a dick about it. But yeah, the movie portrayed him pretty bad. It's just a nice version of what could happen. I disagree. Just want to say hi, I heard a lot of your casting. Keep up the great work. Thanks for Germany. Thank you. So with the general sum of the movie done, onto my review, I said it was disappointing because it was. I watched it on the airplane, and it was very long. I don't think it was as long as Dr. Sleep, but it was pretty long, and I think unnecessarily long. And it did take a long time for it to, like, really be interesting. If you want to sit back and enjoy the what could have beens and the cinematography and the setting, right? Some people would find the 60s nostalgia and the westerns and they even have some really cool scenes from the westerns that are directed. Like, if you want to enjoy that, then that's cool. And I enjoyed it to an extent. But it went on a very long time before anything was really interesting. Because DiCaprio's character's whole, like, I need to move on. I'm going to be the villain. I'm going to be the heel instead of the hero. I'm going to go to Italian movies instead of working in Hollywood. Like, that whole thing was not that interesting to me. Nor was it very endearing. Like, DiCaprio's character is likable, but it wasn't like I was, like, totally invested in this character and whether or not he could do something, anything. I didn't actually care. As good as a Westworld television series? No, just because no. I keep using the word Western, but make no mistake, like, this isn't... It's about actors who do Western. It's not Western. Well, I guess there's probably some similarities to Westerns. I'm sure people would love to look into it, but... I watch this actor's pretty long without getting bored. Well, that's fair enough. I guess I just disagree. I can't think of a movie where the characters alone, and specifically the actors alone, carried it for me. Because characters can carry a movie, even if the story's not that interesting, and their dynamics with each other. The story is obviously 99% of the time going to be the most important thing. How it's written, what are its goals, what are its motives, thematic elements, so on and so forth. But actors portraying two characters that are often apart from each other, with one having a story and the other one just kind of floating in the wind, so that's one actor portraying like a decent character arc, that's not going to carry a whole movie for me. The little girl was cool. There was a little girl in the Western, and she was kind of fiery, but I actually thought she was a bad actress, which is very unfair for me to say because she's literally like 10 years old. But I didn't actually think that she was that endearing or interesting. So when she gives DiCaprio's character a compliment, I was like, okay. I've never watched Inglourious Bastards, but I have watched Django, and I did like Django. So, how do I compare it? In terms of rating, Django's better. I mean, everyone said I should see Inglourious Bastards, but I just don't think I'm not very interested in it when I see all the trailers and whatnot, and I know trailers aren't the end-all be-all, but sometimes it is. Sometimes you see something and the story just doesn't appeal to you. And that's kind of it for me with Inglourious Bastards. And what I've heard from people who do like it and why they like it also doesn't appeal to me. Are you interested in discussing the Oscar nominees? No, this is just for 2 movies and then I'm done. I mean, I might later on for future just chatting sessions, but this is just a movie club for 2 movies. Maybe I'll include it next week, next Monday. But I think in terms of debating whether or not the Oscars made good choices or the Golden Globes or anything, like, you know, all the drama behind like snubbed actors and directors and all that, like, I'm not really interested in it. It's even to a point where I've been disappointed enough times by critically acclaimed movies or movies that have won Academy Awards that I hold almost no bearing on it. And a lot of movies that I think are very good and deserve to be recognized as an art, like as an art, but also as entertainment, like, don't get recognized, and I'm like, what does it really matter? Not that I'm gonna snub anyone who is interested in the Oscars and all that, but just for me personally, I don't really care. Like, I guess one of the things I'll say is that Little Woman being snubbed was a big disappointment. You monster. What? TLDR, did you like Muriel's wedding? Kind of. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. I do not care about an industry giving itself prizes. Yeah. So to sum up, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'd give that... I mean, maybe I'd give it... It's kind of odd, because I think in terms of enjoyability... Well, no, actually, you know what? I'm gonna... yeah, I'll give it like a 7 out of 10. I think I enjoyed it overall better than Muriel's Wedding, and I think it was a better movie overall than Muriel's Wedding. So yeah. 7.5 out of 10 type thing for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but it is something you're gonna have to dedicate a lot of time to. You don't necessarily have to pay the most attention to it though, so it could be a good movie to put like on Netflix when you're doing something else, which can be nice. But I tried doing that with The Irishman, and I just was like, Irishman was also something that was a bit disappointing, and I was thrown off a lot by The Irishman's it just wasn't very good de-aging. Like, I know de-aging is a technical thing, but it's also an art form, and I think the art did not follow through. Whereas I can think of some other de-aging moments, like brief Star Wars moments, or the Tron movie was one of the first ones that was better. Good Netflix and chill movie. Yeah. And the, if anyone is like, oh, it's Tarantino, it's going to be super gory and bloody, that only happens in the last 10 minutes. So if you really want to Netflix and chill with a laddie friend, they're a lady or a man friend, either one. I don't know when you should make your move, because either you make your move early and miss most of the movie, or you make your move late and then there's a bunch of like decapitations and stuff at the end, and you're like, depends what you're into, I guess. For me, Oscars means there are a lot of really good films in cinemas. I mean, is that what it means? It's kind of weird to say that because, I mean, as Ice Wolfie kind of makes a joke, it is the industry giving itself its prizes. There's also a lot of problems with whole, like, not everyone who votes actually watches the movies they vote for. Or doesn't watch all the movies they can vote for. There we go. So you can feel out yourself that there's a lot of really good films in cinemas without someone else telling you what those good films are, you know? Oscars is TLMC 14. Yeah. Except, let's be real, basically no one who actually votes in terms of general public actually go and play on those maps. Where I would at least, like, none of the maps. Where, in the case of the Oscars, they watch the movies they want to watch at the very least. Right? They see a movie, they watch it, they like it, they say, I'm going for that one. But they don't watch the other 5 movies in the category. That's not quite equivalent to TLMC. It'd be like if a Terran player was like, that looks like a Terran map, played it, confirmed it, and then voted for it. I mean, many films have premiered just before Oscars, so they'd eventually premiere anyways. And how many movies are really... Like, I know there's movies that are Oscar bait, and obviously getting recognition for your hard work and all that, even if the award is... The more you look at it from afar, is kind of meh. It is something, right? It's still nice. I feel like those good movies would still be made because they want to be good movies. So there's the quick 2-film summary of Movie Club. What's the next movie gonna be? I really want to watch Parasite, but I have to wait for it to actually come out on, like, something accessible. I think the next movie I'm gonna watch is 12 Angry Men. Supposedly the best film ever made.